Welcome Scorpio to your in-depth monthly forecast for November 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout features to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. And there's a huge amount of excitement for you this month, Scorpio, because on the 13th there's a new moon in your sign that combines with your traditional ruler of Mars. Also, from the 18th through to the 22nd, the Sun in Scorpio is linking to your modern ruler of Pluto. So those are two absolutely stunning events that I can't wait to unpack for you. With year 2024 speeding towards us, if you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, I'll prepare the rest of year 2023 for you, free of charge. But also in my special package of 30% off, I'll prepare for you your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will give you searing insights to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but helping you to get a much more intimate understanding of how to work with these in a really adroit way. Please see the link beneath this video for more information. So Scorpio, you absolutely burst into November with the Sun, Mercury and Mars, your traditional ruler, all in your sign, giving you a big push to initiate or to inject ongoing strands with all the enthusiasm and passion that you can muster. But also in week one, the Sun is face to face with Jupiter. Now, an opposition can create tension because we've got two opposing forces that are not integrated, but the Sun opposite Jupiter, despite its retrograde in Taurus, can be actually very fortunate for you because your determination to make progress with your ideas and plans can be received very positively by others because they're just going to pick up the excitement and verve that you're going to be generating. The opposition between Mercury in your sign and Uranus is more complex. That could create a bit more tension, I feel, especially if something happens quite quickly or your ideas are quite fluid. You're a fixed sign, but this is a time of great momentum. So you may decide to do something much more on impulse with that particular connection, and it could be around a relationship. So there could be somebody that, you know, comes into your field of vision and you really are compelled to connect, to speak to them, to have some kind of connection, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out for you. But also there's another opposition going on across your 11th house, which is Venus, friendships, social connections, and Neptune in your sector of romance. Is there someone in your circle, in your group interactions, that is captivating you in some ways? Because if someone does capture your imagination at this time, they can certainly do so in quite a lovely way. But equally, of course, Neptune can trick us into thinking we're seeing something that perhaps isn't necessarily there, or you could be drawn towards somebody who's rather mysterious, but you never quite get to know what their motivations are. But I do feel there is a great sense of urgency around your situation at the start of the month. So even if there is that beguiling energy that you can't quite make sense of, you may still want to do something to move forwards, to take some action. So it really is a thrilling start to this month. But also on the 4th, Saturn, the planet of structure, but of restriction and limitation, does end a retrograde which began in the middle of June. But if you think back to the start of March, the 7th, when Saturn moved into your 5th house, have you been thinking more seriously about your romantic situation since then? If an ongoing relationship has lost its allure, you know, you haven't felt quite as as charitable or generously spirited towards other people generally. That could be to do with Saturn. It's making you think in a more scrutinizing way about who's worthy of your affections, which is fair enough, because since 2012 Neptune has been in your 5th house, may have created some magic, but also may have created some illusions and therefore some disappointments. And I think what you're doing with Saturn in your 5th house is turning up the dial to try to understand who really meets your criteria, and if they don't, you probably are choking off a little bit of your investment in the situation. So if there is somebody that is disappointing you, that you don't feel the relationship is making progress, the arrival of Venus in its 2nd home zone of Libra on the 8th is for you house 12. And just being really honest, that can be the part of Venus's cycle where we deeply review our involvements, and it could be all the way to ending one that's not working at all. But on the 10th, Mercury makes its way out of your sign and into your 2nd house, but it does forge a clash with Saturn. Now, Mercury moving into the 2nd house is very much about how you evaluate your self-worth. It's also how you feel about everyday money. And Saturn's in the part of your situation to do with risk, speculation and chance. And the 5th house can therefore be a part of our situations where we can gain. But Saturn obviously again is raising the bar. So I feel that it's not the best of times from the 10th through to the 12th to be too free and easy with your resources. But the new moon of the 13th is truly powerful. New moons see the sun, which is very much about our more masculine drive and desires to manifest our ego, and the moon, our more receptive side of our nature, to do with our feelings, security and emotion. It sees them aligning together in a way which is totally integrated, so each takes the best from one another. Now, of course, the moon in the sign of Scorpio is in its fall, so it's not the greatest place for the moon to be, but it's still in the alliance with the sun. But if we put Mars close by, as we have this year, that creates a much more intense set of energies off, because if you like, Mars can be a very impatient, a very impulsive, a very fast and more masculine energy that's applying to the moon in one of its most vulnerable locations, but in the conjunction with the sun in your sign. So you can inject something that's important to you with a lot more impetus, enthusiasm, drive and passion, certainly with Mars, but it's going to be more difficult for you to see the bigger picture. You're going to be much more focused on what you want from situations rather than what anyone else might want from you. So that single-mindedness is very important if you're a creative person, you know, if you write and play music and that's where you want to really put all your energies, or you work in the arts, or you're an actor. This is very, very intense and brilliant for, therefore, turning up the dial in terms of what makes you unique. It's less positive for relating to other people. And of course, at this time, Venus is in house 12, which is to do with really reflecting on the value of your relationship. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out for you personally, because it really does depend on how your nativity compares to the exact relationship that's going on by degree. But from the 18th through to the 22nd, it's true that the sun in your sign does link with Pluto, your modern ruler, in Capricorn. So it's a very receptive link, and it could see the ideas that you've had gaining traction in terms of your ability to basically push those ideas outwards, to interact with people. And so there could be some traction that really builds up in quite a powerful way. However, on the 22nd and the 24th, the Sun and Mars move together into Sagittarius. Now, if you've really been working very hard and investing a lot of your time and emotional and physical resources in something that's important to you, you could see your financial situation improve from that point. But there is a fine balance, to be honest, Scorpio, because both the Sun and Mars then are targeted by Saturn, just like Mercury was, in a square. So you can gain some traction, but I think it has to be very modulated. I don't feel it's going to be a case of loads of money pouring in. I feel it's a case of an improvement, but being mindful of keeping the creative output going, which does come from that 5th house. So I think you're going to have to work at it in order to get an improvement, but you can, for sure. But from the 25th to the 30th, Mercury then squares up with Neptune. So once more, it's important to be very realistic about resources, because Neptune can, as you know, distort the reality. The 2nd house is giving you a desire to enjoy the good things in life, more sensual pleasures, whether it's good food or good wine or being up close and personal to someone. But if you're up close and personal to the wrong person, or you let your guard drop in order to get your needs met, but it's with someone who's not safe for you in terms of what you need, for example, someone who may be a perfectly pleasant person, but all they want is some kind of transactional connection. They don't necessarily want something that's long lasting, or maybe that could be you, or it could be you that's wanting something that's much more for the longer term. So just be conscious, the 5th house is where we do want to razzle and we do want to dazzle, but it's hard to razzle and dazzle with Saturn in the mix. But the desire to get the comfort and intimacy can be one of the things we need. It could be having some very calorific goodies towards the end of this month that you may find very compelling and very hard to resist, which takes us to the Gemini full moon, which occurs on the 27th. Now for you, that's house 8, which is very redolent of the energies of your sign, very much to do with transformation, where we're most invested, can be to do with deep relationships, sex. The 2nd house, where you have the Sun and Mars, very much about your instant need for gratification, but they're T-squared, and so that's a T-square. So we've got the moon on one side, we've got the Sun and Mars on this side, and in the middle we've got Saturn in your 5th house, which is in some ways limiting or moderating what you may crave for. So it could lead to you looking at your cost basis, see the ins and outgoings, and maybe some things that you have gained pleasure from in the past. You may find that you want to economize and be a little bit more careful about your expenditure, which can make you potentially feel a bit miserable, not because you're particularly attached to the thing you're giving up, but just because the whole vibe is more cautious. But that's really the territory you get into on that particular full moon. So as you burst into December, I think whether it is financially or whether it is about your personal values, about the people you hang around with, there's going to be some kind of test, some kind of audit that needs to take place, but it may be a self-audit as much as what you're going to experience from other people. But then equally, if you are deciding to call it quits on a relationship that hasn't worked, it could get a bit rancorous between you and the other person if the division of assets, money, and all the different attributes the relationship is shared is not carried out in a way which one partner is not happy with. So I don't want it to seem like doom laden. I think just as easily your sex life could be absolutely red hot passionate by the end of this month. I'm just saying, with Saturn in the mix, you have to be aware that there could be outcomes that come from that desire led situation. And equally, you could be very lucky that you're cozied up to someone where you just feel perfectly content in one another's company. You're not really fussed about going out and socialising with anyone else, the 5th house, because you're so happy just in being very comfortably ensnared with one another, even if it does feel a bit possessive and all encompassing. That could be actually a moment in the month where you feel supremely happy. We're all very different people. If you're a Scorpio, for example, with quite a bit of Libra, so you've got your Mercury in Libra or your ascendant or your moon, then obviously that's going to bring a more airy ventilation to your chart. If you're somebody who's got more Sagittarius energies, freedom may be the thing that you prize the most, even if you do have some of the intensity of the sign of Scorpio. So we have to always look at the nativity, and these overviews are just that, they are overviews. But this, I hope, gives you a flavour of what you can expect. But if you want to initiate something new and fresh and exciting, this is an astonishingly powerful month for your sign in particular.